I've analyzed dozens of live poker hands my viewers sent in for review, and I've noticed a clear pattern why they can't win any money consistently. So in this video, I'm going to go over 5 of these hands to show you exactly what mistakes they made and how you could win more at live poker by simply eliminating these mistakes. My name is Andreas Wagner, I'm a live poker coach, and let's jump right into these hands. In this first hand, we have ace-king suited in the big blind, and we're quite deep, 230 big blinds deep, and there is a limp and a second limp and a third limp and a fourth limp. I think we probably all agree that we should raise this one up. The question is just to what size. So I think a lot of you might go to something like 15, which is way too small. The way I look at it is I just calculate all the money that's in the middle. So in this case, that's $16. So I would go at least double that, possibly a little bit more. So here I would go 35 to 40, and our hero went to 35. So I really like this one. And we get called by the under the gun player, who is labeled as a very loose player. And then also the hijack calls and the other 2 players fold. So 112 in the pot, and we go to this pretty good flop, ace queen 4 with 2 diamonds. So this is a good flop for us. We c-bet, and I was a bit surprised to see this raise size, or bet size rather, the 125, which is a small overbet. Now, I'm not saying this is wrong, because we have a very loose player under the gun, and if we expect him to call with ace-7, ace-10, ace-deuce or flush draw, then I'm very happy with this. But my instinct is that I think that a lot of players would make this big bet out of fear rather than out of calculation, because they just see that there is a flush draw and they have top pair, top kicker, and they don't want to get outdrawn. But anyway, we now get raised and the other player folds, and now it's back on us. When I see this, like, remember, we overbet this flop and we got raised. So now my alarm bells start ringing. So now I don't know how bad this under the gun player was. He's only labeled as very loose. I don't know if that means loose aggressive or loose passive, because if he's loose passive, then I would like a fold in this case. Like, if we overbet and then get raised 3 times our overbet, that's probably not gonna be great, especially because he's only got 290 behind. If we call here, there'll be like 1,000 in the pot. That's basically an all-in from him. And yes, maybe he has a draw in this case, but I don't really love it. If he's a loose aggressive player, well, then maybe we can just get it in here in the hope that he has a flush draw. But I'm not loving this spot. I think I would probably still fold, also because he limped under the gun. He might be slow playing aces or queens even, or maybe he has ace queen, or he has the same hand as us. Not great against his range, but we call, and now the flush comes in, and now when the flush comes in, we donk all in. I mean, yes, there's only 290 and it wasn't 1,000 in the pot, it's only 862, but still doesn't matter. It's less than half pot. And do we really expect him to fold 2 pair here? No. Do we expect him to call with anything worse? Yes, maybe. I don't mind this, but just realize that we're not doing great. And he indeed had ace queen. So what was the mistake in this hand? Well, the mistake was that hero, I think, went too big on the flop out of fear of getting outdrawn, but then couldn't let it go once his overbet got raised. At live low stakes, even against tricky players, if you overbet at some point and you get raised, you should only continue with the very top of your range. Oh, and if you would like one of your hands analyzed on this channel, then please click the link in the description below to sign up for my email newsletter so that you will get notified when I do another round of these. This time we have ace-10 of diamonds on the button. We raise it up to 100 in a 25-25 game. So this one was played in Mexico, so it's probably more like a 1-2 in the US. So don't get scared by the big numbers. It's not actually high stakes. And we get called by the small blind, and the big blind folds. And look at this, an amazing flop. We have top pair, decent kicker, and the nut flush draw. So that is a pretty good hand. We could check, we could bet, either way, I don't mind. Like, we don't need much protection. There is not a lot we can get value from, but there certainly is something to get value from, so we can bet. Hero goes almost half pot, which is fine. And now we get raised again. And this is another one of those where I think, well, what can he have at this point? Sets, 2 pairs, some decent ace. I mean, he might have called there with a better ace than ours. Well, he has some draws, maybe 8-9, maybe some diamond combination, but then again, we do block diamonds a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to fold in this spot, but I'm not loving it as much as I did before I got raised. So what would I do? I would definitely just call. We do have a lot of equity, so if we look at Flopzilla with our hand against sets and 2 pairs, if he doesn't do it at all with any draws, then our hand has 43% equity, which is pretty good. And if we then throw in a couple of draws, even if it's like 8-9 suited or so, we'll get over 50% with a few diamond draws in there as well. So I don't mind going all in now because we have lots of equity. But you could also play it passively, just call and then see what the run out is, because I don't think necessarily players will continue barreling and bluffing off their stack with a busted draw. So if he continues barreling and you miss your flush, then it might be better to fold on a later street. But Hero decided to raise again, and now the small blind re-raises all in. So now, after all of this sequence, I'm pretty certain that we're not good, but at the same time, we have to call. Now we're getting the right pot odds, so absolutely this is a call. He has 2 pair, which is not too bad, better than if he had a set, but still not amazing, and the run out wasn't good for us, and we lost a fairly big pot, so we lost about 140 big blinds here. So what was the mistake here? Just overplaying a hand that looks really good. I don't mind putting in a lot of money with a nut flush draw and top pair, but it's not like this amazing hand, because it's a bit of a hybrid between a draw and a made hand that's not super strong. So you shouldn't necessarily play this type of hand as you would a set. This hand now, I think, is one that a lot of you would make this mistake. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it folds to us on the button. We have 5-4 suited, absolutely fine to raise this one. Big blind calls. 5-5-6 is an amazing flop for our hand. For our range, it's kind of okay. But now big blind donks. And let's very briefly talk about donks again. When a player donks in a heads-up pot, especially if it's on the smaller side, then typically it's not a very strong hand. It can be a draw, it can be some flimsy top pair, it can be any pair. The one thing that this isn't is pocket 6s, 5-6 or ace-5 or any other 5 basically. I really don't expect him to have anything great here, so raising with this exact hand exploitatively would be a mistake, and Hero didn't raise, so that's very good. On the turn, this is a card where you have to think, is it a good card for him or not? And I would guess it's not necessarily. So how does he have a 10? Yes, I mean, he could have 10-6. Other than that, this 10 probably doesn't help him. And he checks, and now we decide to bet, which I think is absolutely fine. We bet quite on the bigger side, but I'm okay with this. We can still get quite a bit of money from draws and a 6, or if he has even a hand like pocket 4s, pocket 3s, pocket deuces, probably won't fold, and even an ace high might sometimes call, depending. But yeah, I'm okay with this. So, and we get a call. And now there is a queen on the river. Put yourself into villain's shoes. So he donked on the flop with either a draw or a 6 or pocket 4s or something like that, then he called the turn. Maybe he has a 10, but it's unlikely. How often does he have a queen? Well, almost never. The question is, what does he have? And I think he is so capped at this point. Like a 6 would kind of be pretty much the best hand that he could have. So my thinking now would go, what bet size do I use on this river once he checks to me so that I can get paid? And I think it can't be very much. So how much would you have to bet to get a 6 to fold? And I think with this run out, even 40 or 45 might do the job. I would not go more than 40, maybe 35, something like that, half pot. But Hero became greedy because he has trips and he wanted to get paid with trips. And I think a lot of players fall into this trap, not doing proper hand reading and just looking at their own hand. And in this case, Villain just folded. He might have folded a 6, he might have just had a draw that he folded, whatever. But my point is, do hand reading and try to target the hand class that is most likely that he has on the river. In this hand, Hero has jacks under the gun, raise to 10 in a 1-3 game, get called by almost everyone. So we're going, what's that, 6 ways to a flop of 9-8-5. Not a terrible flop, but not amazing. One out of these 5 players might have a set or 2 pair or a straight already. So I would be very careful, and indeed Hero just checks. And now the cutoff, bets, and the button calls, and the small blind folds. And Hero decides to raise this one. I am not sure I agree with this. I don't think it's terrible because the cutoff bet small, the button only called, so they might not have 2 pair or better. But that said, there are still a lot of possibilities there how you could lose this hand. And I think I'm not saying you're turning it into a bluff, but you will rarely get called by much worse at this point. Like Jack 10 maybe, but Jack 10 you block that hand. And apart from that, I don't see a lot. We now get cold called by the hijack and the cutoff calls, and then the button folds. So I'm just not loving life now. When the 5 pairs on the board, it's not even that bad because now it's less likely that someone has pocket 5s that they were slow playing. But I still think check is fine. That's the best course of action for sure after our check raise on the flop. 8 checks through, and now there is a queen on the river. So again, similar to the previous hand, who does this queen benefit most? Well, neither of the other 2 players should really have queen, but they could have Jack 10. But then again, we block that hand heavily. The turn check through, I think we have a good chance of having the best hand. So I would go with a block bet, and this is what Hero did. And we do get called by the hijack, cutoff folds, but the hijack does have the Jack 10, and he got there on the river, and I'm surprised that he did not raise. He was probably hoping that the cutoff would call behind, or he was just afraid that someone might have a boat. Hero, I still think the river bet was fine, but I didn't love the check raise on the flop on a board with that hits the calling ranges so well, and there were 5 other players in the pot, so I don't really love that. So this last hand is a really mad one. It was played in Hungary, and it is a 1-1, but look at this, we are 2,500 big blinds deep. I mean, this is absolute madness, and there are no solvers for that for sure, so we have to tread very carefully. But look at this, I mean, this guy who is labeled as a tag raises it up to 40 in a 1-1 game, and then there is a cold call in the cutoff. I don't think you should ever have cold calls to a 40x raise. But anyway, here we are with ace-king suited on the button. What do we do here? Well, we have to raise it up, I guess, but as I said, like 2,500 big blinds deep and a 40 big blind raise, I'm a bit out of my comfort zone, I must admit. but we raise it up to 150. We now get called by the small blind. I mean, I love this game. I think I need to go to Hungary. Now the hijack calls and the cutoff calls. So 6 ways to a flop. We have ace king suited, have position, and a pretty good flop for us. We have the nut flush draw and a gut shot to a straight, which wouldn't be the top straight though, but it's still okay. Let's see, it checks to us, and hero now bets 250 into 600. Like, quite honestly, I think I would just take my equity, because what's gonna happen is if someone has a set, they will raise, and you just have to put in more money than necessary. I don't think you will get everyone to fold, and I don't think you will get called by any worse. And just because we have a lot of equity, again, we just don't need to pile in the money there. We can just play it more cautiously, because now the small blind calls, and look at this, the hijack now raises, and that's exactly what I said. So at this point, I think the hijack will most likely have a set, or maybe even straight. So I'm just not loving this spot. After the cutoff goes out of the way, we have to continue. So we call, and the small blind folds. And now on this turn, he keeps barreling. In fact, he goes all in and for half pot. And you see, this is what I mean. Now we have to kind of call. We're getting about 3-1. So we need to be good about 25% of the time. And if we say that only clubs are outs, then we only have about 18 or 19%. So even, I'm not even sure we need to call, to be fair. Like, I think it might be worth folding. If you don't think that this guy has any bluffs, then this is a fold, because you're not getting the right equity. Hero did call in this spot. He bricked the river, and the tag had ace-4 offsuit, so I think he's not exactly a tag. If he opens ace-4 offsuit to 40 big blinds in the hijack. But the mistake that was made again here, and we've seen this a few times, just overplaying your hand that looks good but actually isn't. Try to minimize your investments with drawing hands, and just pile in the money when you actually have your made hand. Once again, the reminder, if you want to have your hands analyzed, click the link in the description below to sign up for my email newsletter, and then you'll get notified when I do another round of these.